we start off with what happened with Bryan Mitchell.
Yeah.
Have you ever played in a game where somebody got hit?
I've played in a game where I hit a pitcher.
Really? Which one?
Mike Torres, when he was pitching for the Boston Red Sox.
In the head?
In the head.
What kind of feeling is that for a player?
Well, first of all, you have to remember that Mike and I were teammates with the Montreal Expos and in Baltimore. We got traded together to Baltimore, so he's a good friend of mine. And I can remember I hit the ball, and everything kind of was in slow motion. I yelled at him to look out. Maybe that was the first lookout, but whatever. I yelled at him to look out, and the ball glanced off. He turned his head, and it glanced off the side of his head and went all the way into left field where Jim Rice picked it up and threw it back in.
Oh, wow.
Well, Mike stayed in the game. And I figured, well, maybe I didn't hit it that hard. I thought I did. He stayed in the game for one more hitter. He got Eddie Murray to hit into a double play. Then they took him to the hospital, and he was okay.
Ken, do you think that what happened last night will remain in the mind of Bryan Mitchell the next time he steps on the mound?
I think it will. I think it will forever. All you have to do is Mike Messina was hit when he was pitching with Baltimore, and he told me that he thought about it from time to time. Of course, he's a Gold Glove fielding type pitcher, and I think it made him even more aware of his final position after he released the ball. If you can remember, Messina was always directly facing the hitter when he let the ball go. He wasn't falling off to the side where he couldn't recover and make a play. And I don't know if Mitchell will make any changes to his delivery, but it was very scary last night. And I know after something like that happens, Michael, it kind of cast a pall over the whole game until we found out that he was on his way back to Yankee Stadium.
All right, now, Kenny, we spoke about this at the first half hour of the show, and I'm just wondering, is there anything you could do, or is this just one of the risks of being a pitcher? I don't know if there's anything you could do.
I think pitchers have been resistant to anything that would change. A lot of pitchers say any type of equipment that they would wear on their heads would certainly make them feel uncomfortable. It might change their mechanics. It might make them look goofy. Right. That sort of thing. So, pitchers haven't worn anything basically for over 150 years now, Major League Baseball, and I don't see it happening soon. Maybe if they could come up with if he had something on his head, it might not have protected his face.
Right.
That's where he was hit, I guess, just above the eye, and that's what I was hoping. I mentioned to you during the course of the game last night, in between innings, that hopefully he didn't get hit in the eye. That's all I hope that didn't happen.
Ken, it feels like this could happen at any era, right? Like even the players aren't on steroids now. It's not like all of a sudden they're using metal bats. But this year it does feel like there have been more guys who've gotten hit in the head, face region, 4 or 5 instances we've had this year. Do you think it's an aberration, or is there any maybe thought to a theory of, hey, we have more hard throwers in the game than ever before with the way bullpens are stacked like never before, and that could be part of the reason why we've had the incidents that we've had?
Well, the big term nowadays, or one of the terminology that they use, is exit velo when it comes to hitters hitting the ball. And when it's going 100 miles an hour, it could be very difficult to get out of the way. Now, you're just talking about the pitchers that got hit. How about the pitchers that almost got hit, or be able to react and get out of the way or get their glove up and make a play? You're going to see this from time to time. Pitchers who throw the ball out over the plate, the hitters are going to hit it back through the middle from time to time, and pitchers know that. So it's just part of the game for them, and they're good enough athletes for the most part to make the plays. I can recall some of the knuckleball pitchers like Phil Niekro. They could have thrown a knuckleball today, and Niekro's probably 60-something years old, but he said one of the reasons why he stopped pitching because he couldn't field his position anymore. He couldn't catch that line drive back through the middle. It was getting too close, and his reactions were getting too slow, and that's why he decided not to pitch anymore.
Talking to the Yes Network's Ken Singleton. We'll be doing the game tonight on Yes, Yankees and the Twins, and our coverage will start at 6 on Yes. Now, Kenny, let's talk about this team. Are you surprised this team is in first place? In spring training, I did not think that this was a playoff team, but here we are, and if the season ended right now, they'd win the American League East.
Yeah, going back to spring training, I didn't know what to expect from the Yankees, to be honest with you.
So many question marks.
Yeah, there were things that were going on, and you looked at the rest of the teams in the league, too, in the division, and I thought to myself, well, they've got a lot of things going on with them as well. I had a conversation with Brian Cashman one day, just he and I in near the offices at Legends Field, and I told him, I said, sometimes it's not such a bad thing to be underneath the radar. And I think a lot of people were not picking the Yankees to do much of anything. And all of a sudden, you've got A-Rod having a pretty good year. You have Teixeira having a comeback player of the year type of year. The same thing with A-Rod. You've got Ellsbury and Gardner at the top of the order. You got the Yankees. I think the main thing with the Yankees this year, I wish the starting pitching was a little better, but the main thing is, Michael, and I know you'll agree, they score more than they did last year.
Yep.
I mean, they're second in the league in run scoring, and when you can score runs, it can cover up a lot of blemishes on your team. And one thing, I was looking at the notes today, the Yankees have scored more first-inning runs than any other team, and we know that. They're almost to 100 now. But in games at home, when the Yankees score in the first inning, they're 24-1 when they score first. Not in the first inning, when they score first in a game. And by far and away, that's the best in baseball. So I think if that trend continues, we shouldn't be surprised that they're in first place.
Ken, Greg Bird, I know we've only seen a snippet of him thus far, but he looks hitterish, doesn't he, when he's in the box? I mean, what do you see when you've seen him in the limited at bats thus far?
Yeah, a lot of times when you see rookies come to the major leagues, they're very antsy, and they want to put numbers on the board right away so they'll be able to stay in the major leagues. One thing I see from him, he's got very good plate discipline. The other night he ran a count to 3-0, and then he comes up with a double to lead off the inning and get the winning rally started. To me, he hits the ball from line to line. He's got power. I mean, he's a pretty big kid. He's 6'3", 6'4", and he'll probably get even stronger once the big league meal money kicks in. So, I think that he's going to be a player that the Yankees are going to be very happy that they hung on to. I'm sure there's other teams that wanted him in these deadline deals. Alex
is 3 for his last 36.
Yeah.
Is this just a slump, or is he 40 and he's starting to feel the effects of a long season?
I hope it's just a slump. He's had those. At the beginning of the year, he wasn't hitting particularly well, and then all of a sudden it kicked in. I would think, and he mentioned the fact that he's gotten to DH just about. That's it. He just DHs, and that's what's kind of kept him fresh to this point in the season. Now, I know with Greg Bird on the team now, Joe Girardi has some options to give him some days off, let Teixeira DH and put Bird at first base, and give A-Rod a day off against what Joe would think would be a tough pitcher, or maybe a pitcher he doesn't have numbers against. So I think that's just something. We saw it in Toronto. I think that's something you might see down the road.
Ken, when we see what we've seen from Masahiro Tanaka this past weekend, do you take that and say, okay, you know what? Maybe he hasn't been quite as dominant as last year, but when the lights shine brightest, this guy still has that ability to be an October dominant pitcher. Do you still see that? We know he's been good this year. We all know that. Very good. But do you still see the dominance to win you a game in October?
Maybe I wouldn't go that far, but I don't think he's quite as good as he was last year before his injury. I mean, last year I thought he threw a little bit harder. He was more dominant in ball games where the other team was, you'd like to say, I like to call them no-chance games, where they really didn't have a chance to beat him. This year, he's given up quite a few home runs, more than he did last year, at a higher rate. And I just think that maybe that he's not quite the pitcher that he was last year, but he's still pretty darn good. I mean, he's 9-5. You have to think if he hadn't gone on the disabled list for a month, he'd be a 14-game winner, or 12 or 13 games for sure. So you would take that going into the year to say if this guy could win you 15-plus ball games, I think I would take that. And his ERA is higher than it was last year. And I think that the major difference is that when he makes a mistake, it goes out of the ballpark.
Kenny, what did we learn about Toronto when we were there this weekend? What did you find out about that team that you did not know until you saw them play?
Their defense is better.
Yeah.
Their starting pitchers are doing a pretty good job. I'm still not totally convinced. The pickup of Price is big, of course. I think that they can hit definitely at home. They're top 4. We mentioned it during the series.
Good as any team.
Yeah, as good as any team in baseball, maybe the best in baseball. Tremendous hitter. Not only home run hitters, but good hitters, too. I mean, Encarnacion had a 13-game hitting streak going. I know that Bautista's average is down, but he's hit like 21, 22 home runs since June. And Donaldson's been good all season long. He might be the MVP of the league. And now they got Tulowitzki, who's kind of feeling his way, but Tulowitzki makes their defense better at shortstop. So they're going to be a team that has to be reckoned with. I think if you can keep the ball out of the hands of Osuna at the end of the game, because he's pretty darn good, even for a 20-year-old. Some of those other guys, I think, are a little bit shaky.
Now, Ryan, I don't know if you know this,
yeah,
but one of our most consistent top listeners is Kenny's brother.
No, I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. Did you tell him you're going to be on today?
No, I didn't,
Well,
but I
he's
figured he'd be
listening
listening anyway. So,
Now, is he still living in the area here, Ken?
yeah, he lives up in Brewster, New York. He's been the track coach at White Plains High School for over 30 years. I think now he's fallen into the role of assistant coach as he gets closer to retirement. But, I'm very proud of my brother. He has sent a lot of kids off to colleges throughout the Northeast and around America. And I know when he comes to visit me down in Maryland where I live, he's always off going to lunch with somebody who goes to Loyola or Towson University or University of Maryland, one of his former students and track stars.
Well, we thank your brother for listening and being such a loyal listener. And you're going to have to carry me tonight, Ken. I don't know if I'm going to bring much of a voice to the party.
I noticed you got the honey here, Michael. That works wonders.
You got to tell Ken about your honey theory.
Yeah, I don't like squeezing honey out of a bear's head. It gives me the creeps, Kenny. I spoke about that yesterday, but that's the package it comes.